this is the first time ever that the leaders of the three countries are putting their heads together and have arranged such a meeting. Let's discuss more with Chris Casquejo from Voice of America. Welcome back, Chris.
Good to be with you.
So how did the idea for this summit come out?
Well, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said in Tuesday's briefing that the seeds of this trilateral summit were planted in Tokyo last June when Sullivan met with his Filipino and Japanese counterparts, and they agreed to enhance the partnership. According to White House East Asia official Mira Hooper, these three countries share a joint vision for the future of the region because they're all democracies, and the time was right for a leader-level summit, Dami.
Right, then we have to talk about what roles Japan and the Philippines are expected to play here, especially for the Philippines, considering it's a new addition.
Right. So first, let's talk about Japan. Japan has 50,000 U.S. troops stationed in its country, but command and control is in Hawaii. Now, the U.S. and Japan committed on Wednesday to better coordinate their military command and control with some reforms. The specifics of yet have to be announced. And the Philippines is also a key part of U.S. defense strategy in the region. There are no permanently stationed U.S. troops there, but the U.S. and the Philippines have a mutual defense treaty that dates back to 1951, rather. In 2023, they agreed upon 4 additional sites under the 2014 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, to provide additional staging capacity for U.S. military, where U.S. troops rotate their presence no more than 10,000 at a given time. The Philippines also needs to retrofit its military assets. So to that end, the U.S. Senate has proposed $2.5 billion in grants over the next 5 years to help Manila purchase weapons from Washington. And this is all an effort to discourage China from its so-called gray zone tactics, like firing water cannons, shining military-grade lasers at especially Filipino vessels in the last few weeks.
Right, so it's highly likely that trilateral meeting will launch a new, or has launched a new security architecture especially for the Indo-Pacific, countering China and its growing aggression. What will that mean for South Korea and also for the Korean Peninsula?
Well, Japanese PM Kishida said last week that he hopes there will be more unity in deterring China from resorting to military action to resolve its regional disputes. Japan and Washington have said this coordination is critical to guaranteeing a free and open Indo-Pacific. Now, there's also a role for Japan to play in trying to meet with Kim Jong-un. Biden says Kishida's efforts in that regard are, quote, a good thing. And that's because Washington has not been able to open any lines of communication with Pyongyang.
Definitely, and it was actually the first time that Biden showed support for Japan's outreach to North Korea. Now, Chris, I'm sure the trilateral summit on Thursday will get on China's nerves, right?
Naturally, and it already has in anticipation of the bilateral meeting between the U.S. and Japan. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said on Monday, "We oppose cobbling together exclusive groupings and stoking bloc confrontation in the region." And the Chinese embassy in the U.S. told BOA over email they wanted to underscore that interstate cooperation should not target a third party. Such practices, patching up small blocs, stirring up confrontation under the excuse of cooperation, upholding peace and order in name, but flexing military muscle and stoking chaos in nature, do not meet the trend for peace and development and run counter to the regional countries' shared aspirations for stability and development. But National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan of the U.S. says that the President Biden has said that these alliances are not designed against any countries, but they are more in favor of a free and open Indo-Pacific.
Right, and what China argues, and some analysts point out, is skepticism over whether this trilateral effort between U.S., Japan, and the Philippines will actually, stick and hold up. Is that likely to be so?
Well, certainly the case is that people think that there might be uncertainty because leaders in the democratic countries will change going forward. We know that President Biden's opponent in November, former President Donald Trump, has favored a bilateral rather than multilateral approach to his own foreign policy, and that was how he operated when he was in the White House several years ago. Now, the U.S. is not the only nation holding elections. Japan has them in September. And of course, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol already has less political margin in your country since his party lost seats in this week's parliamentary elections. And now for the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is limited to one 6-year term that ends in June of 2028.
That is right. All right, Chris, thank you so much for the report today. We appreciate it as always.
Good to be with you again.